OK， 进入直播间的朋友可以先签到。姓名加单位可以先签到。就是也请朋友们可以转发，就是把今天的链接呢转发到各个群里，只要点右上角的那3个点儿就可以。好，感谢大家，我们在1分钟后正式开始。进入直播间的朋友可以签到，写上你的姓名以及单位。Okay, today our topic is mining industry contracts and laws preparing for success. And as usual, at the very beginning of our conversation, Joe, please introduce yourself. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Hey guys, my name is Joe Martins, and I'm a former software developer and marketer, brander, and business analyst, and speaker, presenter. Was doing that for about 20 years with Fortune 500 companies. And then the past 5 years, I spent helping companies in China, manufacturers, sell into the North American and European markets. And then over the past year, I spent most of my time in helping people throughout China to practice their conversational English, their speaking and listening skills. And so our conversations, Dr. Lyu Guo and myself, our conversations are to help you get some, interesting information, but also English listening practice. So over to you, Dr. Lyu Guo.
Okay, thanks a lot for your introduction. Okay, and now a lot of friends have entered into our live stream space. 张宇，中国冶金地质总局一局的张宇先生，欢迎您进入直播间。还有我们拓客公司的王双红先生，欢迎您进入直播间，欢迎。我们也欢迎大家转发我们的这一个直播。同时欢迎大家在这儿签到，咱们逐步的都变成老朋友了，就是大家互相沟通交流。也 OK，and Jason 崔，free interpreter，也欢迎你。 越来越多的朋友进入我们直播间了，现在已经有快将近36人进入直播间。OK， 那 let me introduce myself. My name is Lyu Guo, founder of Suntrans, and translator and consultant in mining and geology. 我是阳光创意的创始人吕国，也是主要是矿业领域的同声翻译同传，同时也是矿业咨询师地质师。I graduated from 又出现昨天早晨的问题，直播平台需要重启一下，不好意思。OK。Okay. Okay. Go ahead. I come back. And when I was studying at the China University of Geosciences in mineral deposits, I also worked for BHP Billiton as a geologist and translator, prospecting for porphyry copper deposits. 那么在我读硕士期间呢，就实际开始给世界上最大的矿业公司、澳大利亚最大的企业必和必拓，当时做地质师以及翻译。当时主要呢是白岩铜矿的勘察工作。And I was jointly cultivated by China University of Geosciences, and Chinese Academy of Sciences, and Miami University in the United States. For my PhD, I specialized in geomicrobiology, that is about microbes and interaction between microbes and bacteria and rocks. And 那我在后来呢，我就是在博士期间呢，我是受中国地质大学、中科院还有美国迈阿密大学联合培养的博士。前2年半呢是在中科院，后面1年半呢是在美国迈阿密大学的地质系，当时呢是地质微生物学专业。When I came back to China, I worked for China Geological Survey, responsible for international cooperation and compiled a lot of international mining investment books. 那么当我回国之后呢，我在中国地质调查局工作，参与了一些国际合作的工作，还有国际矿业信息的收集、编译的工作。And at the same time, I finished my postdoc at Beijing University. 同时呢，我在北京大学地空学院地质系完成了我的博士后工作，也是成矿率相关的研究。And in 2008, I registered Suntrans Certificate of Tsinghua University, Beijing, and in 2008, and registered Suntrans Consulting LLC in New York in 2011. 我在2008年在北京注册了阳光创意翻译公司，聚焦于矿业能源领域的翻译。同时，在2011年在纽约注册了矿业咨询公司，阳光创意矿业咨询公司。And we also have several branch offices in different countries. One is in Toronto, Canada. The second is in Kampala, Uganda, Africa. 那么还有一个and the third one is in Lahore, Punjab province, Pakistan. 我们有这3个办事处呢，分别一个是在加拿大的多伦多，一个是在非洲乌干达的堪帕拉，还有一个呢是在巴基斯坦的彭加波省的拉赫尔。那么这是我们建了几个办事处。In the past 12 years, I have been in more than 30 countries to help Chinese companies to purchase mines, oil fields, involved a lot for mining investment negotiations. 那么在过去这些年呢，我们帮助很多的中国矿业企业去收购矿山、油田，参与了很多的谈判。That's why today we are trying to talk about international mining project and negotiation, the laws, mining acts, mining laws, and the contracts, etc. 这也是为什么今天我们要讨论的主题呢，是关于国际矿业项目中的这些矿业法以及相关的这些合同。So I would like to take a lot of examples. All of these most examples, I didn't particularly study specialized in law, but I didn't specialize in law, but I involved a lot of projects and worked with a lot of lawyers together. Just because every mining project is very huge, and Chinese lawyers, foreign lawyers involved in the project, and we learn a lot of practical experience from them. Okay. And today we are trying to discuss mining laws. And Joe, would you like to talk about your reason why do you choose today's topic? Okay, please.
Sure.
Yeah, please.
So, a couple things, a couple reasons. First is that it's a new topic. We haven't discussed it before, and one of our goals with every live stream is to have some new topic that the listeners can get some practice hearing us discuss this type of subject in English. And that's valuable. The more topics you hear over time, the more terminology you'll be exposed to, the more vocabulary, the listening to the way that we have our conversation as we're discussing this subject back and forth. So that's one reason. And the second is the audience is also made up of some people in the mining industry and geology. And this is another aspect of that industry. In the past, we talked about investment purely sort of the investment for the sake of investment. Here, it's going to be more about the underlying contract and negotiations of the investment opportunities. So hopefully there'll be some new terminology and some new things that you can hear to get more listening experience and hopefully learn a few things as well.
Okay, thank you. And as we know, firstly, I would like to talk about laws. Different countries have different mining laws. In the very beginning, I didn't know, I didn't notice about this point. In the very beginning, when I was trying to involve in certain foreign mining projects, I told my colleagues, why don't you choose why don't we choose Chinese lawyers? Because we without language barrier, it's very easy to communicate with them. But our colleagues told us, okay, in different countries, there are different laws. And for the law, they have also some certificates or license. In different countries, they have different requirements and different certificates. So if our Chinese investors are trying to invest in other countries, we must invite at least two types or one type lawyers. Particularly the local laws. For example, we are trying to invest in Ethiopia or Zimbabwe. We must hire the local lawyers to help us. Otherwise, your Chinese lawyers may not have related certificate, or you are not allowed to draft certain agreements or concessionaire agreements or some contracts. And sometimes, of course, a lot of mining owners also have worried that if we just hire the local people, maybe they are foreigners. It's easy for them to communicate. For example, I'm a Chinese investor. If I invest in Ethiopia, maybe the local people will directly connect the opposite, the mine owner, and maybe something is not something wrong will happen to me. So in such a case, if Chinese in such a case, Chinese investor also need to hire Chinese translator and Chinese Chinese lawyer. If you have enough budget, we suggest you must invite not only Chinese, not only foreign lawyers, but also Chinese lawyers and translators. Otherwise, maybe some people will cheat you, and even they combine together. The foreign lawyer you hired may combine the mine owner together to cheat you. So in such a case, if you want to guarantee your project or your negotiation successful, my suggestion is you must hire very professional lawyers from other foreign country, and if necessary, also hire interpreters and your Chinese lawyer. After all, even different country have different country lawyers have different certificates, but some parts are the same. So as long as one Chinese lawyer has experienced a certain special training or accept the education regarding laws, then he has the basic common knowledge or even some professional knowledge. So it's very necessary. Chinese lawyer and American lawyers, it's very necessary for our mining projects. Would you like to talk about your opinion?
Sure. What I would
about
say
this point? About this point.
Yes, in practically everything you do in life,
yes,
you should always make sure when you're dealing with attorneys,
okay,
attorneys should have relevant experience, right? So these would be attorneys that do contract law. They do maybe their experience is also with mining. So they have subject matter expertise.
Right.
The second part, though, and that you mentioned, which is super important, and this applies, by the way, to everything you do, not just mining, local expertise. And the reason is, from, as you pointed out, from country to country,
yes,
even in states, in provinces, in cities, in villages, the laws will be a little bit different.
Yes.
In the United States, there are 50 states with different laws. And in fact, as an attorney, you have to pass the bar,
right,
in each state that you want to practice in. So
right,
a Massachusetts attorney cannot practice in New Hampshire without taking the bar and passing it. So local expertise and all subject matter expertise. And then the third part that you mentioned, and I think that this is probably one of the most important, is the translator.
Yeah.
The law is one of those areas where I still, and I've been in technology since the mid-1990s. I've been in the technology industry. I would not trust machine translation for a legal document.
Right.
No way. It's not ready yet. It's not ready. Because there's a saying in English, read between the lines. When you read between the lines, you are looking at the idea behind a statement.
Yes.
Not the literal translation of a statement. And the only way, if a machine looks at it, a machine is going to mostly be literal. A human with the right expertise, like a translator with mining background, experience, geology, can look at that document and translate it to mean in the other language what it really is intended to mean. Because if the attorney can't, the attorney has to rely on the accuracy of the translation. It's only as good as the accuracy of the translation. Otherwise, that attorney may be working with incorrect or inaccurate information, the translation. So it's a close relationship. The attorney, subject matter expertise, local expertise. The translator, definitely subject matter expertise, and if possible, great if it's also local expertise, and they should work together as a team.
Now let me summarize in Chinese so that all of our audience can fully understand what we are talking. 那这儿我用中文再稍微做一点介绍。刚才我们先说了，实际上涉及到3个观点，我重点提其中我们讨论的一个观点，就是一旦涉及到 overseas mining investment， 一旦涉及到我们海外的这个矿业投资项目的时候，我们首先一定要请这个律师，并且要从对方国家去请律师，因为律师他使的这个资质不一样，证书不一样。你有中国的证书的这些律师，并不等于你在海外也有，很多情况下确实还没有。那么这时候我们要从当地要请当地国的项目国的这个律师来做这个项目。那么这时候就产生几种问题了。一旦你如果只请中国的律师，你参与海外项目，他没有这个对方国家的职业执照的话，那他是不允许做有些案子、有些项目的。那么首先呢，肯定就以外方的这个在国外请的到当地的律师，首先要考虑这一点。同时呢，我们也意识到，一旦请外方的律师，有些时候呢就有 language barrier， 就有这语言障碍。那么这时候我们就可能还要请一个中国的律师来辅助参与到这个项目。如果你有预算的话，这样可能会更好一些。那么同时，我刚才在这儿也提到，你还要请翻译。一旦请了外方的这个律师，那么你可能有些时候沟通起来呢，有翻译，你整个的项目签这个矿业项目合同才能够进行。那么为什么还要请中方的这个呢？我在这儿特别强调的是，如果只有外方参与的项目，有时候外方当地的律师呢，他们没有语言障碍，信任度较低，他们两个有可能会串通起来对付你中国的矿业投资者。你想在那方去做矿业投资，但是他们之间没有语言障碍，他们都是他们自己本国人，有可能联合起来对付你。那么这时候你要有一种制衡原则，虽然你给这个对当地的律师已经请了他，给他付了费，但是你也要有中方的律师还有翻译能够监听他，避免有一些陷阱或者他们联合起来对付你。Okay, so what I'm talking is extremely important. 那么同意这一点的，请大家回复1，也请大家帮助我们转发。就刚才我讲的，你要必须首先呢，你不能请只有中国执照的律师参与国际项目，那么要请对方的律师，同时还有如果有预算，还要请中方的律师加翻译。同意这一点的，请回复1，不同意的请回复0，请大家帮助转发，谢谢。Of course, just go. Joe Martins also mentioned several very important points. In his opinion, we must hire very professional lawyers in mining industry. In mining industry is a translator instead of machine translation. After all, there are different lawyers. Even some people maybe just for IT or some transportation instead of mining industry. So if you are trying to hire the lawyers, he must be very good, very knowledgeable of mining industry. Otherwise, he is not a professional enough. After all, segment is extremely important in the current society. So for translation, it's also the same. After all, for each mining project, the unit is even billion or million. So involved a huge sum of money. That means you cannot ask one unprofessional lawyer or a machine translation to finish one very huge project. In such a case, you may take a terrible risk. So it's too risky. So we must careful about this. And when you are trying to hire the lawyer, and you must check his several background. One is education background. The second is work experience. The third is his reputation. You must ask some people to do questionnaire or to investigate his background and see how about his performance, his personal performance, and his questionnaire. Otherwise, your project will fail. And even for the lawyers, even he has conducted a lot of mining industry projects, and a different country, different language involved in different lawyers. For example, one mining lawyer or attorney may work a lot in Canada or Australia. That doesn't mean he is very good at mining laws in Africa, in different African countries. Maybe different countries have different laws. As you mentioned, even in America, different state in the United States, different state has different laws. So if we are trying to hire the lawyers, you must make sure his language background. If you cannot solve language background, you must hire translator, and his education background, his work experience. You must consider all of the and his specialty All of these points are very important. Okay, go ahead, please.
Oh, and the relationship in that local area, and here's why. When if things go wrong, if you need to sue somebody because something happened,
right,
you're going to want that attorney is going to know the local judges. They're going to have relationships. They know how that system works. An attorney from China is not necessarily going to even understand how Kenyan law or South African law really works I'm not talking about the language. I'm talking about the relationships. So when you walk into the courtroom, do you want that judge to see your Chinese attorney, or do you want that judge to see a local attorney that he's known for many years?
Yes.
Is this that's what we call
that's also
no-brainer.
Very important. Yes. No brainer.
Yes, relationship. Well, because same thing here. Boston, you would not hire a Boston attorney to go defend you or prosecute in New York City.
Yeah.
Because they don't know the judges. They don't know. You want local attorney, local expertise, local relationships, even international court. If you have an attorney that is an international experience, that attorney will have relationships in international court.
Right.
So now you've got three places. You've got the investor's home country. You've got wherever the mine would be, the investment, that country, and you have international. And so you want those attorneys to have those established relationships. Super important.
Yes, I agree with you. So let me summarize and translate your words and my ideas into Chinese, so that other people can fully understand. 我这儿也把我们俩的观点呢，至少用汉语再简单的说一下。就是我们真正要请在国际矿业项目中要请律师的时候，我们一呢是要请肯定首先呢首当其冲呢要请当地的这个律师，因为他有当地的这从业执照。第二点呢，对这律师真正要聘请的时候，还要考虑他的专业受教育背景他的专业以及他的从业经验。还有一点 ，John Martins 呢，他也提到了有很重要一点呢，就是以及他的这个跟他的关系。那么有些时候呢，可能 public relation 那需要有公关，有部分相当于公关的也涉及到。还有一点呢，他如果跟项目方关系很密切，那可能也比较麻烦。那么所以这个关系，这也是我们在聘请律师的时候也要考察的。他前面反复也提到过关于所有聘请的翻译也很关键，你不能用机器翻译这么大的一个合同项目，因为做国际矿业项目投资的时候有几百万、几千万甚至多少个亿这样来投资的，甚至单位有时候是 dollars。那么这时候我们就必须要翻译也同样也要请的比较专业，那么请律师也要找到特别合适的当地的律师，那么而且他把关系也注意好，最后你这个项目呢才有可能获胜。那同意这一点的也请回复一，我们有20秒钟的时间，也请大家转发。Next one, I would like to talk about several big, terrible, two very terrible pitfalls, and some stories happened to myself. I lost a lot of money. Firstly, when we are when we are trying to sign up an international contractor, we must care about the CEO and the owner, who is the owner of the project. I would like to talk about two stories. The first story is that it happened in one morning when I was still in Beijing. One Chinese friend made a phone call to me. He had a project in South America, and he told me, okay, he lost a lot of money, and the mining project like this, he signed up the contract, and with one person. The person also even frequently show up in the mine site, and later when the Chinese investor paid the money to the local person, and later he didn't really transfer the project to our Chinese investor. I asked what's the problem. Finally, the person told him, "Oh, okay, the project belonged to his elder brother, not himself. Even he signed up the contract. The contract was illegal because he was not the real mine owner. He was not. His elder brother was a real owner. Okay, and then the Chinese investor went to look for his elder brother. But his elder brother told him, I didn't sign up the contract. You tried, you signed up the contract with my younger brother. You just look for him. Okay, the Chinese, the Chinese investor sued the person in the court, but still failed. The judge told him, okay, you didn't sign up the contract with the real mine owner. The contract is illegal. So the Chinese investor took a flight and immediately came back to China. When he departed the airport, directly in the early morning, he directly looked for me in my office. Told me, okay, I lost a lot of money. How should we deal with it? Okay, I immediately made a phone calls to all of my friends in my industry. About more than 10 friends told me the same. Recommended some people who were working in that country, in South Africa, in South America, and then actually that is a coal mine. That is a coal mine project. And a few days later, my friend and him and the Chinese investor went to Africa together and and found out the local lawyer attorney to solve the problem. Finally, he solved the problem. But anyway, here I was trying to say, when we are trying to sign up the contract, we must ask some lawyers to finish due diligence. Due diligence is extremely important. If you are trying to sign up the contract, even you don't know who is the real owner, that is very, very terrible. The second story is maybe 5 years ago. One Chinese guy, one Chinese investor had a project in Russia, and with in the very beginning, just one contractor, he tendered us about 20,000 RMB. It's not a big deal. If we didn't sign up the contract, he told us the project was extremely urgent. We must do it immediately. So without, I think the project was not very huge, only 20,000 RMB. So we immediately finished the project, and he finished this. He also paid us the translation fee very quickly. I think, okay, no, the person was reliable just because he kept his promise. I think we should believe him. And then he continuously asked us to translate more documents. This time, it's a very, very huge project. Later, about 530,000 RMB. I urged my colleague to sign up the contract, but that girl just graduated from university, was still very young. He said, "Oh, okay, I will do it." But actually, she didn't urge that person to sign up the contract. I think, oh no, we must do it quickly as possible. Finally, we signed a certain contract, but we didn't care too much, and later we urged them to pay us as quickly as possible, but we couldn't find him. He was still in Russia, and later when we checked the contract, we found that the company was registered in Hong Kong. Hong Kong Hong Kong's laws is different from mainland, and so we hired some local lawyer attorney, Hong Kong's lawyer, and to deal with it. We spent another 60,000 RMB. Still didn't get the project, get the payment. So totally, I lost at least 600,000 RMB from that project. That is at the very beginning when that happened 7 years ago to myself. So I think here I emphasize, firstly, you must sign up the contract. Second, who is the real owner? Who is the real owner of the project? The third one, and you must say, where do you sign up the contract? If you sign up the contract in the site, the place is very important. If the signature place is located in China, then you finally, if you are trying to sue the opposite, you can use the Chinese law. If not, you have to fly to other countries, other places, and they are using different laws. Maybe the law, the local laws is very complicated, and it's not very easy. Finally, I lost a lot of money. Up to now, I still didn't get the payment. That is about 600,000 RMB. So a lot of lessons from the failures, no matter from that Chinese investors in South Africa or myself. I lost a lot of money. So would you like to give some of your comments about the two stories?
Yeah. The due diligence. I mean, in just about everything, it's extremely important. One of the challenges with that, especially if you're working with maybe people you know, family, friends, it's very common for people to just say, oh, a handshake. It's just what we call a handshake agreement, meaning there's no contract, it's just verbal. Problem is that in many cases, if you should have some sort of contract. 2, it has to be enforceable. And 3, the contract doesn't do anything really about, unless you put this language in the contract about the ownership issue. So I'll give you an example that happens every day outside the mining industry in America.
Okay, please.
In the real estate industry, if you come to America and you want to buy a piece of property, one of the most important parts before you even worry about getting a loan or handing cash to the bank is to get a title search, a deed. They look for the deed for that property. And the reason is that is the legal document that tells you who owns it. If you're talking to Jim and Jim's name is not on the deed, you shouldn't be talking to Jim, unless he is in some way representing as an attorney, representing the true owner. So you always want to make sure that when it comes to anything that has land rights, land use, buying the property outright, whatever the nature of the agreement, I agree 100% with you. You have to do the search, and in each country it'll be different. In America, it's a title search, and they look for the deed document. But you want to do that due diligence, and then in addition to that, any other vetting that you need to do. For example, is it going to have an environmental impact? Maybe you're investing in something and you don't even know if the local government is going to okay the environmental impact of that. So there are many different layers of due diligence that you need to do in advance. In fact, I would say that about 90% of all the effort in a contract comes even before the actual negotiations begin. It's all the research, making sure that everything is in what we say in order. Right? Everything is in order, meaning it all looks accurate, correct, complete. There's nothing missing, no unanswered questions. And then you enter into, sort of that contract writing and negotiation part of the process. But before that, 90% of it is homework, to do the upfront homework to make sure you're getting into a deal that, you're not going to end up losing before you even get to close the deal. I mean, imagine in that case, it's a terrible feeling, right? You didn't even get to the point of closing the real deal. And it's avoidable, but it's an easy mistake to make if people are new to an industry or new to a process. So this is where experience, where if you, from the outset, I usually tell people if they're going to invest, let's say, in real estate in America, first thing, speak with an attorney.
Yeah.
And a real estate attorney, not a personal injury attorney. You speak with a real estate attorney because from the beginning, that experienced attorney will say, we must check A, B, C, D, and they're not going to miss anything if they are experienced in that field. You don't want, and by the way, please don't hire your cousin, your brother, your uncle, who's an attorney.
You are familiar with them, but they may be not very professional.
But also if they're not in the right field, right? Very common. When I was in finance, that it was so common for someone to say, "Oh, I'll get my own attorney." And I would say, "Okay, who is your own attorney?" They say, "Oh, my brother-in-law, he's an attorney." And I'd say, "What kind of attorney?" And they'd say, "Well, he does criminal law." And I go, "Criminal law is not real estate. He isn't going to know anything about real estate." So you want to avoid situations like we said before, right expertise. But
yes,
also early in the process. I would get translation and legal involved early in the process to make sure that imagine you're reading a deed for property in Africa. It's not your whatever language that you're looking at in Africa, not your primary language. And you want a translator that can understand what a deed document says about ownership of the property.
Okay. Well, sorry. I restart the platform. Now it works. 对不起，刚才呢又由于这个平台的问题重启了一下，现在应该恢复正常了。那我们好，现在又恢复正常了。这个平台这2天稍微有点不稳定，可能修了一次电脑之后，有些地方有点小问题。我继续再讲刚才的这2个案例。一个呢是说南美洲这个案例呢，他拿了一笔钱呢去买了当地的这个煤矿，那这是属于私人老板。他买煤矿的时候，这个人说带着他的煤矿各个地方都看了，那都在开采，说的很好。那他就赶快去签了合同。签了合同之后呢，后来他也把钱也付了，但是对方不给他矿权、矿证，那个整个的资产交割呢没有给他。最后他就到法律院去，想要去起诉，起诉也不起作用啊，因为后来呢他才知道，那 这个法院一看呢，说这个签合同的人并不是真正的矿主，那么他就又找去问这个人，这矿主究竟是谁？他说矿主是他哥哥，他虽然经常呢去那个工地上，去那矿山上，那个矿呢实际上是他哥哥的。他找他哥哥去算账的时候，他哥哥说：“哎，我又没跟你签合同，我为什么要把矿给你？”所以两个人就扯皮，这使得他呢就是出了问题。所以我们有些民营企业在做海外矿业投资的时候，对当地的法律要清楚，而且对业主一定也要清楚。你如果不做这些背景调查，导致的结果就是你签了合同，这个人他就根本不是这个真正的矿主，你签了也没用，你把钱都支付了，打官司打不赢。那后来我们又帮着他找到我之后呢，我又联系了10几个律师让推荐，最后呢终于推荐了当地的其他的律师呢来帮着去打官司。那么我细节一些更多的后期的故事，有些我就不讲了。核心讲到的是，我们签合同的话，尤其这些民营企业，那你要舍得前期要做好尽职调查，并且要明确好他是不是真正的项目方，真正的是法人，真正的是这个有资格来签这个合同的。那么这是还有一个案例呢，我讲到是我个人，我损失了将近60万元那一个翻译费。一开始呢，他说项目很紧急，没有签合同，直接很快翻译完他也支付了2万元。后来我们一看这个人这么信任，就让他做第二项目，他就让他签合同，他也没签。那个项目有53万，一开始有53万多，那我让他签合同，他一开始没签，后来签了一个，但是我们犯了一个错误呢，就是那个公司呢，他签的地址呢，他是按照香港的，那么香港的话，我们打官司就到香港去打，那么不同的地区这个适用的法律不一样，找律师又不一样，我们又花了很多钱，官司还是没有打赢。这里头曲折很多，到现在那60万都是属于打水漂了。这事情呢发生在7年前，也就是2013年的时候发生的。所以我在这儿就告诫咱们所有的做国际项目矿业投资的时候，那你签合同的时候，签署地也极其关键，因为你签署地将决定你要适用于哪儿的法律，不同的地方不同的法律条款不一样，甚至业主不一样。甚至有时候还有一种情况，我们当时有遭遇一个问题呢，就是他盖的叫萝卜章，就是他那个章呢并不是他真正有法律效力的，他用的是其他公司的。所以我们签合同的时候，你一定要对跟谁签，在哪儿签，盖的章是哪个公司的章，你不要轻易的都去做这些事儿，否则的话，你损失就是几十万、几百万，甚至矿业项目有时候大的几千万、几个亿都很正常。所以每一个细节都要请专业的律师来做。当然，我们John Martin 先生呢，刚才也提到的，其中有几点说，你在请律师的时候，还要注意一点，你不能因为你认识某个人就有信任，就一定请他去做你的项目的律师，很有可能，这个人呢他不够专业，或者虽然你们有熟悉度、有认识度，但是如果他不够专业的时候，你光只有认识度、熟悉度，你这个项目依然做不了。所以我们强烈的建议大家在做项目合同的时候，你要具备这种能力，你要有这种意识，跟谁签，在哪儿签，签署地是什么，你聘用的律师呢，究竟是专业的，还是只是考虑到认识，因为你是做刑事的，做民诉的，民事诉讼的，他各种律师还是矿业的，他的专业背景是否具备，这些都很关键。你别找一个不专业的人去做专业的事儿，那么这就会极大的影响我们一个项目的一个矿业项目，尤其它的涉及到的项目金额比较大的时候，就会容易出事儿。同意这一点的，请回复1。那请大家继续帮助我们转发今天的这一个链接，让更多的人受益。我们讲的这些案例，大家看得出来，都是我们实操的亲身，有很多的血泪史，有栽了很大跟头的。希望与咱们做国际项目的这些同行，能够互勉，互相提醒。也请大家继续帮助我们来转发。 感谢大家。所以请律师很关键。Okay, nowadays for very huge mining projects, there is a kind of a very common, frequently a kind of a phenomenon happened. That is, when we are trying to sign up a mining contractor in many countries, about the environmental laws also very important, because you are trying to mine copper or gold, silver. Anyway, in certain countries, more and more countries have very strict made very strict environmental laws. If your criteria or requirements cannot meet the government requirements regarding if your project is not environmental friendly, maybe the government will let you stop the project. We have sometimes the government will take environment as an excuse to let your project to be ceased. Here recently, I can take a lot of examples here. For example, these days, maybe in China, many internationally, one project is very famous, and even a lot of Chinese investors know the project. That is in Papua New Guinea. Maybe 3 days ago, in the early morning, in Chinese morning, we discussed about that project at the very beginning. And then in the evening, just 12 hours later or 10 hours later, the government, the Papua New Guinea government delivered the announcement. They told us that, okay, the project originally, the contractor signed by Beijing Mining and Barrick Gold Corporation, and they announced that, okay, I don't allow you to continue to conduct the mining project in Papua New Guinea, and it will belong to the government, the local government, instead of your Beijing Mining and Barrick Corporation. They have two excuses. One is about environment. For example, the Papua New Guinea government thought that your tailings polluted the environment. It's not proper. You polluted the area. Even in the desert, no human beings. This still thought, okay, you pollute in the miles and miles desert. You polluted the environment. Actually, it's an excuse. But they still think if the government said you break the law, so you're really breaking the law. And sometimes they change or they revise some laws, and Another possibility is suddenly when Papua New Guinea found that in the past since 2015, Zijin Mining and Barrick Corporation purchased the project and paid a lot of money to Papua New Guinea government, and nowadays Zijin Mining has made enough money and they have. The cost they have their return is enough to for the original cost. It's basically okay. But generally speaking, the project was very profitable. So the government said thought that so that you made a lot of money in my country. Oh, it's not fair. Return the project to me. Let me do the project. So nowadays they increased the tax in great degree. So that the Barrick Corporation leader and leaders and Zijin Mining leaders mentioned that we cannot pay so high tax. If we pay so high, we will lose money. We cannot. We can. It's impossible. Finally, the Papua New Guinea said, "Okay, just go away. Let me do it." So now the story has become very popular. A lot of it's a tragedy in mining industry. A lot of people said that the government sometimes didn't obey their promise and initiatively and actively break the law, or they revise the law, or they couldn't keep their promise. As a result, hurt a lot of investors' feelings. They will maybe in future they will warn all of the many investors out. Never go to Papua New Guinea. It's a very bad place. The government doesn't obey their promise. I think such kind of phenomena will happen. Actually, this is not a single case. A lot of stories repeatedly happening in different countries. Like in Uganda, we involved in that project about the copper and the cobalt, Columbia copper mine. It's the same. The government told us, okay, your tailings polluted the environment. Stop, please. The project was really ceased for 2.5 years, and then it's very hard for the mine owner, the Chinese mine owner, to raise money immediately. As a result, their financial chain was broken, and finally, the project was the government took over the project. It's also a tragedy. The same story happened in other countries, even without any single penny of compensation. The government said, "Okay, you broke the law. Immediately leave the project," and even they arrange army, the soldiers, to robot the project. Your company's colleagues cannot enter into any step. Just go away. The government sometimes become a robber. The government becomes a robber. That's why some countries cannot develop quickly, just because government organizations don't obey the law. It also happens. Why some countries develop so quickly? Some countries still develop very slowly, just because the government cannot abide by the law. They break the law. Even you sue them in international court, but they still it's international court also have no way to deal with a lot of projects. Even you think the certain government breaks the law, they didn't. They have no right to implement the law. So that's terrible. So anyway, here I emphasize the importance for environmental items. Even some countries are very, very poor. Poverty it happens everywhere, especially in rural areas, in some many areas. But they are using some developed countries. Actually, and the high level government officials didn't break the law, and they have right to break the law. So for our many investors, we must care about this point. They may look for some excuse. Especially environment items will be taken as a very common excuse, like to cease your project. Okay, Mr. Joe Martins, please talk about your opinions.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I would say, in addition to what we were saying earlier about translation and attorneys, I would say that there are four main areas that, if you're going to be involved with any kind of agreements or contracts as a translator, there are four areas. One would be legal, so you should understand legal terminology in the target language, target country. The second would be social, different kinds of social issues, governmental, procedural issues. The third, economic. You should have some understanding of economics and the terminology involved with it. And then environmental, because most contracts, even outside mining, if it's real estate development, if it is you want to establish a pig farm somewhere in the province or the state, it's going to affect those four areas: your legal, your social, your economic, and your environmental. So as a translator, if you really want to be valuable in contract law, contract translation, you want familiarity with those, both in the target countries that you're going to maybe specialize in. Let's say you specialize in countries in Africa, but also at home and potentially internationally, because and we have a couple slides for this. There are the three levels, right? There are the domestic laws. Those are the laws in the country you're doing business in.
Right.
You have the contract, which is all the ordinary contract law as it's written. And then you have the international law. And you think of it as a cake, right? Layers in a cake.
Yes.
So you've got all the domestic laws, then you got all the contract specifics that you layer on top of this, and then you've got all the international rules that get layered on top of that.
Yes.
And that it becomes complicated, right? In that if you don't spell out, meaning spell out is an English way of saying if you don't include language in a contract that address a very specific issue.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, in almost every jurisdiction in the world, it will default to either the international or to the local law. So if you forget to talk, when you register a business in the United States, if you don't put any language in about how to dissolve your partnership,
right?
So there's nothing in your agreement about it. Automatically, whichever state you're in will say it defaults to the state rules or to the federal rules for the dissolution of a company.
Yeah.
So it's sort of standard around the world, So you want to make sure in your contract that you actually include, you address all those issues. Environmental, we've been talking about. You want to address the environmental issues, because if you do not, it will default to whatever the local or international rules are about environmental law.
Yeah.
And that's where things get muddy. They get ambiguous. and you don't in legal terms, ambiguity is a double-edged sword. Can work for you, but it can also work against you.
Yes, you are right. Okay, let me translate our opinions into Chinese, let people fully understand. 我这儿再刚才讲讲我们提到一个观点，就是在国际上我们最常见的签署这些矿业项目的过程中呢，很多国家呢对这个矿业项目中的这个环保啊、环境啊这一块，往往它可能有很多的漏洞，不叫漏洞，有时候呢把它会作为一个借口，所以我们关于环保的这一点，有些时候呢要特别小心。比如在3天前我们做了一个节目，那个节目的一开始我们就谈到了这个紫金矿业跟巴里克黄金他们在2015年签署的那一个在巴布亚新几内亚这样一个太平洋岛国上的一个项目。这个项目呢，当然截至目前，这个项目非常赚钱。紫金矿业已经把所有的成本都收回了，趋势非常看好。突然间，那天早晨我们还在谈论，晚上呢，政府就发布了一条公告，就告诉他们让这个矿权呢不再续约了。以前呢是允许开的，现在呢通告说不允许续约了。这实际上在某种程度上就违约了。但是违约的时候，政府提了2点要求，一条呢就是他希望要加高税收，一下子royalty啊跟各种税收呢一下加得非常高，高到那紫金矿业跟巴里克黄金公司呢一看，如果真的按照那要规则去做的话，那赚的钱全让巴布亚新几内亚政府就拿走了，他们就不赚钱了，肯定就不同意。另一个还有一点呢，他也就找的借口呢是环保。他说你的环保不达标，他就找这个为借口，就把你的这个矿权就要取消了。实际上以环保为借口的国家很多，咱们有些人呢经常讲38指的是Pakistan Brazil and 还有一个就是巴基斯坦啊，还有巴西啊。好几个国家呢，它也都是比较常见的，就包括还有非洲有几个国家，他们都经常把环保作为一个要求。你看起来他国家很贫穷，但是他引用的是这些发达国家的这些法律，他把这个环保法一拿来说事儿，然后就让你这个项目停止了。不过我们在非洲我亲自经历的一个项目呢，就是突然政府说你这个尾矿tailings 尾矿污染环境尾矿坝不合格，一下子就把你的项目就暂停了，一暂停，然后融资就困难，资金链就断裂，整个项目后来就被政府就接管了。所以有很多国家呢，在做这个国际矿业项目的时候，要把环保法一定要了解，并且在环保相关的这些协议一定要看仔细了。有些路是那一开始就要了解这政府它有哪些把戏，有些政府呢，他真的希望环境要更加友好一些，但是还有一些呢，真的是只不过是一个借口罢了。因为在绵延数公里多少，周围的啥都没有，在那个沙漠里头，他还说你环境污染了，那个地方有什么环境污染的？那当然也有特殊的，也有确实有不同的要求，但是有些时候呢，就是一个借口。但是咱们在签署这个矿业项目的时候，他对环保的要求，大家一定要高度重视，看他有什么要求，还有这个政府以前是不是一个信守承诺的一个政府。那如果对这个环保上大家不够重视的话，经常这些政府呢就拿这个来说事儿，最后把你好好的一个项目，看你赚钱了，要么提高税收让你滚蛋，要么就拿环保说事儿，让你离开这个项目，你前面大量的资金就违规了。包括委内瑞拉的其中有一个大型的这个项目，直接让你滚蛋走人，
1分钱都不补偿，有些国家还有一些补偿，像紫金矿业跟巴里克在巴布亚新几内亚这个项目，好歹他们还要补偿，也有一定的补偿金，但是还有我们见到若干国家的项目，在非洲、在南美洲、在东南亚，我们都见到有若干的项目，补偿很少，所以栽了大跟头。所以我们在签国际矿业项目的时候，一定要特别关注它是否在环保这一条。你看你是否达标，或者当地的对方的政府他是不是信守承诺，这样才能够避免很多悲剧一幕又一幕的发生。那么，所以你的项目中是否特别注重这个环保了，是否在意这一条？那认同我刚才讲的这一点的，请回复1；觉得这上面讲的这些对你有帮助的，也请回复1。也请大家转发，30秒钟的时间，谢谢大家。Okay, about the mining contractor, and we also must balance mining and sustainable development. Now, I remember last time we delivered a speech regarding sustainable development, and I also mentioned several annual reports like BHP Billiton's 2020 annual report, and Glencore's annual report, and Brazil report, and Rio Tinto's report, and anyway, a lot of mining nowadays. You can check. BHP is still number 1. Rio Tinto also number 2, and Vale also the top 1 iron ore mining company globally. So about all of these mining companies, you can find out one difference, one common character. That is, many years ago, only manual report, but in recent recently several years, you can find out they have 2 reports. One is manual report, and nowadays plus extra report, that is sustainable annual report, sustainable development report. That is sustainability seems more and more important. One very typical example is from Brazil Vale. We know Brazil Vale is the largest iron ore company in the world, and just because since one is in 2015, the other is in the 2018, the third time in 2019, about 3 times. Their mining projects, the dams were destroyed, and a lot of people died. I remember last time about 235 people died in when the tailing dams was destroyed, and the flood buried a lot of people. About 235 people buried in the tailings, like a flood, and another 35 people were missed. Up to now, half a year passed. People still couldn't find them. Most likely, all of these people also died. Totally, about 275 people died or missed up to now. So even the president of Brazil delivered several presentations. Many times he mentioned about, he announced, okay, a lot of mining companies like Vale must care about your dams. You must have certain monitor system, and a lot of people to care about that. Actually, for that project, it's used tailings dam in the past 2 or 3 years. They didn't use that tailings dam anymore. They didn't put more tailings into that dam, but suddenly it was destroyed and flooded and killed a lot of people. So even for some used mining places, we must care a lot about that. So when we are trying to sign up mining contractor with the government or some organizations, ourselves must also concern the safety, the sustainability, the environment. You cannot let people to take a risk, because and another time, maybe 17 years ago, when at the very beginning, when I was a master student at China University of Geosciences, I went to involved one project by my professor Xiao Rongge. He led me to involved in one mineral exploration prediction project. That is lead and zinc project in Gansu province, Huaniushan, lead and zinc project. And one worker told me, we went to the subsurface about 400 meters. It's very deep. It was very deep, and one work underground. It's very cold. Even it's summer. We put on the cotton clothes, but still feel very cold on subsurface. 400 meters deep, and I remember one worker told me 2 points. One is because when we have many projects underground, still some blind wells, blind drill holes. You mean we drill holes and some are horizontal channels, and in the horizontal channels subsurface, they still drilled more holes. In the subsurface, the channels they drilled more trenching or more drill holes. Subsurface may in some pits maybe a lot accumulated a lot of water, a lot subground water, groundwater accumulated over there. One worker told me the tragic story about his colleague. His colleague died just because fall into that blind well, so lost his life. And the second point is that just because always worked in lead and zinc mine, they must about their breath. A lot of air contains lead and zinc powder, and so that these metals will enter into their lungs, and the metals cannot be absorbed by their body. Their lung will be broken. They will die, and sometimes some of their colleagues. Here's also black. Do you know why black? Just the metals enter into in the air as a powder and into our healed when we are healing, enter into our body and gradually accumulated at the foot at the heel of our foot part, so that your heel seems black. Just all there accumulated a lot of metals, lead and zinc. So that means they are poisonous. Some part may be poisonous or will decay. So it's very dangerous. So if we want to make sure one mining project is safe enough, environmentally you must make sure you cannot let some tragedy happen. On the other hand, maybe it's very necessary for you to wear your face masks so that you can the air the polluted air cannot enter into your body. So here, even we are trying to sign up certain environmental contract. On the one hand, we must protect ourselves. Financially, we cannot lose a lot of money. On the other hand, we must make sure it's safe instead of taking a risk to bring some danger to our risk or danger to our human beings. Must protect our colleagues. So, Joe, would you like to talk about your opinion? Okay,
sure.
please.
So, when one example I was thinking of was and I can't remember the name of the company, but it was a company that had a mining company that had created a relationship with the country where the domestic law, the law of the country, was ambiguous about its environmental law. It didn't have great, detailed environmental law. Now, as a result, that company was able to have language in its contract that allowed it to dump tailings into the only local river. And as a company, you have to think about that. You have to say, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. And when you're thinking about what we had mentioned at the start of this discussion today, which was people, the local people, the town or city or state that you're operating your mine in, it has an impact on them. And if you're going to pollute their only river, that's going to affect possibly, their lives.
Right.
So yes, just because as a company you say, "Oh, the country doesn't have any laws that prevent us from doing this, so we will put it in the contract." And then, if the country tries to come after us, tries to sue us, we can just say, "It's in the contract." And remember the layers of the cake: domestic law, contract, and international law. So oftentimes, if the domestic law does not have language in it that says you can't put tailings, you pollute the local environment with your tailings, then technically you could, but should you? Probably not. Not if you want to have a mine is a long-term relationship. We're talking about years, right? This is not a 2-year operation. This is many years. So you want to have a good relationship with that local community. You don't want to kill them all, with your operations. So that's one part. The other thing to mention, though, is the flip side of this. Let's say, as an investor, you've invested in an operation that agreed to certain arrangements with the country, with that government. But now the government wants to change. If you didn't put some sort of protections in advance, then you're going to have a problem because they may in fact be able to change those rules after you've written an agreement. And there's the way you can try to stop that is what's known as a stabilization process. It's basically, the idea is one of two ways. You can either say, okay, we agree, the investors, the country, we agree that all laws that are in place today get frozen.
Yes.
So that there's no change. You're not going to, tomorrow decide that you're going to make stricter environmental law, and then sue us, because that was not the original agreement. So you can either freeze those laws, or this idea of an equilibrium process, which is, okay, if you change the law, we have a certain cost to comply with the changes. So we need to be compensated for new costs.
Right.
So instead of freezing and saying no new law, you're saying you can change it, but if you do, it's going to affect us, and we expect to be compensated for that impact. So stabilization process is a way to try to keep a state, a government, from changing the game. In football, we would say moving the goalpost. Because the goalposts on a football field are at the end, right?
Right.
Moving the goalposts means you're changing the rules of the game.
Yes.
So you don't want that to happen after. You put together.
You're right.
A
so
well-defined
I think I agree with you. Even we didn't sign up certain items in the contract, we still make sure as a entrepreneur in mining industry, we must take some basic social responsibility. That is, for example, to make sure to guarantee every colleague's safety, and don't let them to suffer from certain diseases or potential diseases. It's very, very necessary. We must care about that, and as an entrepreneur, we must restrict ourselves even much higher than the contract. We must meet some social. Not only the contract, but also from the bottom of our heart as a human being, we must morally, we must also abide some requirements. Okay, let me summarize our ideas. 那么最近呢，我讲了很多的，我对我们两个刚才讲的，我用中文再简短的做一个总结。我们讲了像世界上的头号矿业公司必和必拓的2020年的年报，还有财年，我这是指的是财年，还有像第二大矿业公司力拓的他们的年报，还有我们的佳能可矿业行业的高盛Glencore， 那他的这个年报也讲了淡水河的年报，其中特别提到的就是这些年报中呢，慢慢的这些年呢都有一个现象呢，他们把这个年报跟还有专门的有一本呢是可持续发展的报告年报。那么可持续发展极其重要，我们要一方面要攫取财富，另一方面还要保护环境，要可持续发展，这方面都要做好。那么一个呢是讲了就是淡水河谷，那么世界上最大的铁矿公司，铁矿石，那么还有力拓、必和必拓这几个呢都是大型的矿业公司。尤其在铁矿方面呢，巴西淡水河谷呢是第一位的。那么淡水河谷2015年、2018年、2019年这几年的，他们由于尾矿坝的崩溃，使得一下子235人就消失，就是直接丧生，还有35人失踪，到现在都失踪。那么这些事情呢，这实际上他们的尾矿坝的事故，从2015年、18年、19年，先后连续出现了好几次。那么这对这个公司呢，也整个公司的发展都蒙上了阴影，甚至巴西的总统都先后几次都谴责淡水河谷，那么他们不顾大家的生命。 这是，所以我们一方面在签合同的时候，也要确实防止，有些人呢、有些国家、有些政府、有些机构以环保的名义，把你的矿权给没收了，或者只给你很少的补偿，甚至有些时候一分钱都不补偿。那么另一方面，我跟 John Martins 一起达成了一点共识呢，就是我们作为矿业企业家，也要有基本的社会责任，也有基本的作为人的良心。那就是要保护这些矿工的安全，以及要负起，甚至合同上没有写的有些基本的，我们也要做到。我也举了例子说，在17年前，也就是我刚刚开始在中国地质大学读硕士研究生的时候，我的导师肖荣格教授呢，就带着我们去甘肃花牛山的千星矿，就是他在柳源附近，就在我的故乡是甘肃敦煌，在那附近呢，下到地下400米，其中有一个矿工呢就告诉我，他有同事呢，以前呢就掉入地下的盲井里头就给淹死了，还有些人呢是，由于吸这个粉尘，这个矿山的这个又容易有吸废嘛，就是铅了、锌了这些，有些呢会进入你的随着空气中，那它会粉末呢进入你的呼吸，进入肺中，把你的肺破坏，你肺部的这些你的细胞肺细胞的这些。它溶酶体不能溶解这些金属，最后就把你这个肺泡呢就破坏了。那么我是学生物学、人体解剖学的，也了解这些疾病。那么还有一些人呢，就是铅了、锌了，就会随着呼吸进入身体之后呢，你看有些人的脚后跟都是黑的，就是进入人身体，然后这些有些金属元素呢，它沉积在你的脚后跟那儿，看起来脚后跟都是黑的，所以他们都有可能是各种铅中毒或者有些金属中毒。那么我们作为企业家，要作为人，就是一定要不管合同上怎么签署，我们一定也要保护我们的员工的健康、人的健康。这是有些方面呢，也是高于合同的。从道德方面、从法律方面，咱们也要接受，也容易不要让自己接受这种心灵的这种谴责。就是合同是一方面，我们本身每一个矿业企业家也要肩负起。这个社会责任也要接受不光是法律上的合同上的约束，而且也道德的约束，我们自己也要遵守这一点。认同这一点的，请回复一；觉得有收获的也回复一。那我们给大家30秒钟的时间，再次做转发，感谢大家。Joe Martins, I think you have a lot of experience, and here you also mentioned what's the Model Mining Development Agreement (MMDA), and moving from a win-lose to win-win negotiations, and governments as informed partners. So about this, the several points, would you like to talk about your opinion?
Sure. So, people who are in the industry will know even more about this than I would, but there's something that's referred to as MMDA, the Model Mining Development Agreement.
Okay.
And basically, think of it as a way of starting the sustainability first thought.
Yeah.
It's from the time that you think about doing that agreement, you start with thinking about making it a sustainable agreement, environmentally, socially, economically. And the structure of the MMDA is such that it includes many, many provisions that you might not need, but they're there so that as you're walking through that agreement, think of it as a template. As you're walking through that template, you can ask the right questions. You can say, do we need this part of this agreement in this specific arrangement between that state and investor, let's say. So it's a helpful guiding outline that you can then choose what is relevant to you from the outset with sustainability in mind. And when they talk about win, I forgot a win. There should have been a third win in there. But there are three wins. It goes from win-lose, which is basically the company wins, everybody else loses, or the state wins and everybody else loses. Win-win is the country, the people, and the company.
Right.
All collect. Sometimes, think about in Africa, where maybe the government makes out very well, very lucrative. Maybe the company makes out very well, but the people lose. So the idea of MMDA is also to try to look at sustainability from everyone's perspective. Can we make this profitable for the company so that they want to invest? Let's face it, if it's not profitable, the company is going to look to another region where it can make a decent return.
Yes.
If it's too strict, too stringent, that may be also unattractive. But to balance all of these pieces of the puzzle so that the company feels it's getting a fair deal and the local government and people feel they're getting a fair deal. So MMDA is just a guideline that you can use to craft your agreement from the start. And it's been around, probably more than a decade. I would say at least maybe around a decade. 2011, 2010. And it was created by the International Bar Association for Mining Law. These attorneys basically got together and figured out, a standard template with every possible thing that you should think about when you're doing a contract. So you should look it up, see if you can find the guidelines and read it and understand what the different potential provisions are in the document. And then you'll understand the scope, because there's a lot. You might not need every provision, but you should understand all of the possible provisions in it.
Yes,
and
I agree with you. Yes.
You had mentioned,
I think one
you
point
had mentioned
is
also.
Okay, go ahead, please. Okay.
Oh, yeah, no. Go.
Okay.
Continue. Sorry.
I have some suggestion. During the course of signing up mining contractor, we must consider several different persons' benefits. Sometimes here you mentioned about the government as informed partners. Actually, for one project, a lot of companies, especially state-owned Chinese state-owned companies, they like to occupy the 100% shares instead of just a little. Actually, when we are trying to invest in other countries, sometimes we had better keep certain shares for the local regional mining companies, and hire some of them people continuously, and also keeps certain shares to the government. Why should we do this? Firstly, if the government also have shares, that means if some problems happens, the government will help us, because government has very important right, and he has power for image. As long as the people say, okay, government also have a share, then government for some public relation issues. The government roles will play very important, very critical roles for the mining project. So, for example, Zijin mining. The Zijin mining also suffered very similar situations many years ago, maybe 8 or 10 years ago, or 8 or anyway, the tailings dam was destroyed. The same situation in Zijin mining. Zijin mining compensated a lot of money to the local people, the communities, and another thing that is. Zijin mining also left a little bit a certain share to the government, to the local government. So the government also played a very important role in public relations and announced certain messages to the public. And otherwise, if just Zijin mining to deal with all of the problems, maybe they will suffer very terrible damage. So in international projects, it's very necessary to keep certain share for the government. You must make sure guarantee government's benefits. Besides the tax. Besides the tax, you also the company, every mining company may make profit very easily. At the same time, you must make sure these officials, the government, the share. The second part is regional. Even you have a lot of money, but some issues something has nothing to do with money. For example, the local mine owner, the original local mine owner may have a lot of relations with the local people. They know how to organize the local people, and they have set up great connections with the local people. No matter you for human resources, you are trying to recruit the local people, or when something happened, you can ask local people to deal with it. Especially community problems. Even from the law, it's okay. You can continue. You can operate the mine, but the local communities may may not agree with you, and then your project maybe finally will be cancelled or disturbed, cannot normally be operated. So you had better, if you are trying to sign up the contract as a mining law, you had still keep certain share for a regional partner or leaders or certain colleagues. Even keep a lot of local people. I involved several projects. One project in Africa, and when we took over the project, about 120 original 120 workers. We still keep them. We still kept them and let them still work over there, because they are very familiar about no language barrier, and they are familiar about what they have done. They have conducted the project for many years, and you don't have to train them, no matter language or technical skills. They directly can put it into practice. And so when we are trying to take over the project, we should keep certain people, the original people, certain people, maybe case by case. At least you can have that kind of a possibility. You must consider about that this. And one is yourself's benefits. Second is government interest. Third is guaranteeing original partners. Maybe they are very useful. We are foreigners. If you go to foreign international projects, you are not familiar about the local laws and customers and community connections and the local newspapers and medium. If you just occupy 100% share, you cannot make everything done. Maybe you still need their help. After all, they have been working over there for a long time. So, for my opinion, so we can, maybe a couple of years later, you can revise the contract. You can maybe you can increase the percentage of the share percentage for yourself. If you have enough money, you can. You don't have. You can increase the percentage instead of in the very beginning. If you occupy all of them, the local communities think that you are trying to rob the treasures. My hometown is a treasure. I don't agree with you. They may steal your properties. They may bring a lot of damage to you. So if we are smart enough, we can gradually increase the share percentage of ourselves. And in the very beginning, they are still worthy for us to use. We gradually, if they think they are not proper, maybe we can hire more people from China. We can increase the percentage of the project. And instead of directly disappear, directly take over everything, 100%. That means we are taking all of a lot of possible or likely risks. So in great degree, step by step, gradually increase your share percentage instead of in the very beginning take over all of them, all of the interest. That means 100% of interest. That means 100 risks. You must take responsibility for any risks. You don't have to. You must take advantage of local people, local communities, local regional workers, regional leaders. Maybe you will win the project. So interest in great degree equals risk. Interest risk at the same time. So if we are smart enough when we are trying to sign up many contract, we must consider all of the people. A lot of factors will decide if you can make success finally for the many project. So Joe, would you like to agree with me? Please talk about your opinion.
Yeah. Oh no, I definitely agree. I've got, I guess, a great example would be thinking about this.
Yes, go ahead, please. The signal is a little bit weak. 我们每个人再帮我们转发几秒钟，我连线一下我们的美国朋友。
I'm back. Am
Yeah.
I back? Okay, great. Well, it just dropped. Our buddies at WeChat. So,
Okay.
so what I was saying.
Okay, go
is
ahead
that
with your. Okay.
You, as a local community, you are not going to just sit down and let that happen. You know, you're going to say, wait a minute, you're taking our resources, so in exchange, we expect, you know, something in return. And it may be that you want, you know, better schools, better roads, better health care, whatever it is that the local government wants to leverage those resources to obtain. And so as an investor, you know, it's wise to, if you want to be helped and accepted and embraced by the local community, you need to give back. You know, practically every savvy company out there, whether it's Apple or Walmart, you know, they don't necessarily give a lot. I'm not saying, you know, if you look at their donations, you look at the profit sharing,
Yes.
They're not giving, you know, they're not making anybody really super wealthy, but they are sharing. Right? They are, so you'll hear stories about, $250,000 to the local community or to the local school or what have you. So this is at a country level now, or a municipality, and you're basically saying the same thing that you would expect if you were the resident and a company was coming in to take your resources. You have to put, we call it putting that hat on, meaning you're going to put yourself in their shoes. You want to put yourself in their shoes and think of it as if you work for an investor, if you work for a mining operation, how would you want to be treated by that company?
Yes, I agree with you.
You need to find that balance. People forget that every adult plays two roles in life.
Right.
One, you're a consumer, you're a resident, you're a citizen, right? You're a person. Second is as an employee, owner, whatever role in a company. We all play two roles. Some part of our day, we are the owner. And some part of our day, we are the consumer. When we lunch, we're the consumer. Someone else is serving us. When we go back to our restaurant that we own, now we're serving other people. And so we should find that balance where we say, how would we like to be treated when we go into a restaurant? And as a restaurant owner, you now have your answer on how to treat your customers, because that's how you want to be treated. So same thing with mining, same thing with any industry. Treat people the way you want to be treated, and that includes profit sharing. You're not trying to keep it all, for yourself. You're not going to give it all. It's not like you're going to. So, and yes, over time, as it gets to be hopefully more lucrative.
Right.
Maybe you change the agreement, but always with some level of balance in mind, where the local community continues to want you there, because the moment they don't want you there, that's the beginning of the end for your operation. Unfortunately, you don't want the locals and the local government to no longer want you there.
Yes, you're right. You're right. Okay, let me translate it into Chinese so that other people can fully understand. Okay, 那刚才我们谈了一个观点，那我说呢，咱们中国的很多境外矿业投资者，尤其是国企，总喜欢呢一去就当大股东，甚至直接就占全股。那事实上有些时候呢，这个你占了全股，往往也冒的风险也大，这收益跟风险往往是成正比的。那我的个人观点呢，是对咱们尽管我们 case by case 要具体问题具体分析。但是在有些项目上，如果觉得有一些风险的话，最好一个是给政府也留一点股份，有些呢政府人家本来就有要求，还一个呢是对原来这公司的这些员工和原来的领导也可以把他们留着，或者给他们一点股份。为什么这样做呢？就是这样做实际上也可以股份比例呢也可以逐步的增加，而不是一开始就占全股，或者是就当大股东。因为你一开始这个项目呢，在有些项目中呢，它可能有一定的风险，当地的社区公关、语言障碍，还有各种社会特殊的关系，以及对当地特殊的这种技能，有些时候呢，如果把他们都利用好了，这个项目才能够运行的足够好。比如一开始呢，你留了政府往往呢它有特别好的形象公关，包括紫金矿业，它这个公司里头呢也给当地的政府也留了一些股份。这样的话，它当年的那个伪矿坝也有亏坝事件，这时候呢也是政府也承担一定的责任，就可以把利益捆绑。这样的话，就不是一个单纯的一个企业它能够承担的了。另外对境外的企业也同样。 让它相应的政府也占一部分股份的好处呢，就是出了事儿或者是涉及到公关，政府它也要怕影响自己的利益，它也会承担责任，所以有必要给政府留一些股份。另外呢，对原来的这些管理者、高层管理者或有一部分员工，那么如果给他们也留了一些股份的话，他们对当地的环境熟悉，也不需要特殊的培训，直接就可以上岗。所以咱不一定签这合同的时候不一定把原来的原班人马全都解散掉，也不一定非得占全股，可以给他们原来的领导留一部分。他们做公关啊，也没有语言障碍啊，也对业务熟悉啊，这些呢还有可能能够充分利用起来。那么等这个项目逐步的成熟了，看也确实非常有希望，可以逐步的再增持股份。那么这样的话，如果到后边确实觉得他没必要做了，我们就把股份完全全收了。这样的话，前期的这种风险也会降低一些，逐年或者逐步增持股份对咱们的项目有好处。所以我们说跟政府可以把政府拉成合作伙伴，把当地原来的员工也可以拉成合作伙伴，逐步的降低风险，逐步的投入，渐进法。我觉得在有些矿业项目中呢，可能会有比较好的有所作为。好，我们讲的这一点呢，对大家有收获的请回复1，或者有认同的也回复1。那我们也有20秒的时间，请给大家帮助转发也回馈反馈。Okay, here contracts as a starting point, not end points. That's just the beginning, and earning a social license to operate for investors and the government are common development goals achievable, and the potential fiscal benefits for a government, and the need for suitable infrastructure, and maximizing employment opportunities. The negotiating team, public outreach, and outside expertise. What are red lines? The bottom lines and red lines. For example, environmental protection is always the red lines, and life all lines. And understanding the needs of the investors. Keep your eye on the ball, and or avoid distractions, and keep transparency, and okay. Now about all of the above, you can choose some angles. Talk about your opinion.
Okay, well, so red line is, most of you might be familiar with that already. That's basically it's simple, non-negotiable, right? So
yeah.
If you have a red line, some people will also say in English, drawing a line in the sand, meaning, it's a line you will not cross. And so contractually, a red line is just a non-negotiable thing. And so that's a one. Government benefits. We started, actually, you had explained some of it, the equity sharing.
Right.
There are many ways to characterize the financial arrangements. For example, when an operation locates to a certain area,
yes,
there are local goods and services, all the support. Now that you may have, hundreds or thousands, whatever the number might, of employees in that area, you have all the local goods and services to support, to feed to, house, to clothe all of these people. So there's even those kind of indirect benefits to the local community. Some of those local businesses will do more business.
Yes.
Any kind of the dividends and shares, the resource itself, understanding what the true value of that resource is, and from a government perspective, having some assessment. Don't just necessarily trust that the investors, their figures. I think the other day, in fact.
Yes, you're right.
The other day you mentioned 3 sets of documents.
Yes. It's pretty common.
One for the government.
One is for investors. The other is for government, and the third one for himself.
Yes. So keep that in mind. If you work for the government, you're getting the government copy. So do you really want to trust that is the market value?
Yeah.
Maybe as part of due diligence, you have your own assessment made. And even by the way, even in the U.S., in real estate for buying a home, usually you will get a third-party appraiser.
Yeah, third-party independent investigators.
That's right. And those appraisers now, anyway, not 20 years ago, but now the law is that they must be independent.
Right.
And if it is found that they are not independent, they can lose their license. So finding some sort of third-party service that maybe it's a collection of geologists and economists or whomever that are going to give you a frank assessment of the real value of, so that, again, from financial benefit, you want to know what that value is. And then, basically, you've got also things like the human resource, the skill development. So if you've got local people that are trainable, that can now have a higher level of job skills, that's a value to your local workforce. So it might not be obvious to you initially, but you would get a better trained local workforce, or at least some of them, in order to work the jobs that are in that operation. So from a government perspective, you have to take into account, all of the potential benefits, and not necessarily trust what third party is telling you. Let's see. I wanted to need for suitable infrastructure.
That's very important.
There's a cost.
Bridge,
there's a cost.
Power, electricity. A lot of reasons we must take them into consideration.
Yes, what if it's several kilometers, away from the nearest water supply, nearest electrical grid, that they can extend out to that site. There's a cost involved. In fact, in the United States, this is one of the areas where communities, oftentimes, if they lack the expertise, they will get into an agreement with a company. Let's say Walmart. They will get into an agreement and say, okay, we want the jobs, we want the tax revenue, we want some, donations from the company. So yes, Walmart, you can come into our town. They agree. Walmart builds its what's called a super center. It builds its supermarket at the edge of town, as far from the center of town as possible. And the city is usually the one picking up the bill to put the road, to put the electricity, the water, even fire department and police to secure and provide, some sort of fire service. So they don't take this into account. And suddenly they've got a big price tag for something they didn't really know was even going to be an issue.
Yeah.
So infrastructure, I mean, it's got to happen. Who's picking up the bill? What kind of infrastructure are you talking about? There's going to be many standard things like the stuff we named a moment ago.
Yeah.
And that's part of the costs. Who's going to incur, basically? Is it going to be a shared cost?
Yeah. So for many projects, we must consider a lot of factors. Sometimes about the reserves, the grade, and the scale, and that is about some part is about geology, and also must consider about the price, the metals price, and also consider infrastructure. Regarding structure, including road and transportation, power, electricity, and who are your clients for your products, etc. And they must also consider market for your products.
One of the other things that some companies run into, and I've mentioned something similar about Google. Several discussions back, but your energy and your water.
Yeah.
If you have, say, a river going through your community, and that river supplies farms, but the mining operation requires, in order to operate at full capacity, it requires a certain amount of water.
Yeah.
If you don't have an agreement that says, look, we understand that full capacity would require this much water, but we can only give you this because the farmers and the people need this. If you don't do that, then they may have in the agreement that they can use as much as they want.
Yes.
And in which case they can say, there's nothing left over for your farms. There's nothing left over for your people. So sorry. Same thing with electricity. If your power plant, power production, energy production, has a capacity, either you have to limit what they can use, which means they may not be able to operate at full capacity.
Right.
Or an investment needs to be made now, not only in the operation, but in the energy production in order to support that operation. And again, your choices are to expand that energy production so that you can satisfy local requirements plus that investment, or you'd have to limit how much that investment, that mining operation could use before, so that your people can have access to their requirements, their energy requirements.
Yeah. So for a great project, for a mining project, sometimes we must consider a lot for factors about red lines, a lot of environmental laws involved in red lines in China, at least in China. Nowadays, a lot of mining projects were cancelled, or the China government doesn't allow these mine owners to continue operate their projects. It's pretty common. Even in past 5 years, since 2013 until now, that's to say, since President Xi Jinping got started to be on the stage, they put a lot of emphasis on environmental issues, so that a lot of mining projects were closed. Even just kept 1/10 or 1/8. I mean, nowadays most mine projects in China have been closed. So that's why nowadays a lot more and more Chinese mining investors investors have to go to other countries, especially in the developing countries, to invest mine projects in African countries, South African countries, Southeast Asia, and Canada, Australia, a lot of countries, and so we must consider sometimes about human beings, the product, the product or service clients, and the infrastructure, transportation, etc. And sometimes also must consider the prices, the price varies. For example, recently in the just because of the novel coronavirus, as we know, gold prices have increased sharply, and a lot of people have gone to invest gold deposits, and we must consider mineral commodities nowadays. What types of minerals are popular? If some mineral materials are innovated with certain special functions, maybe the prices will go up sharply. For example, in the past few years, one is about cobalt and nickel and graphite. A lot of minerals increased sharply about their price, and sometimes also decreased sharply. And anyway, for one mine project, we must consider a lot of properties, and I think one of the most important and factor is still about talents. Talent. You must have certain experts or talents or a team to finish one project, because one of my friends told me, even the project is very huge, very profitable, but if your team is not strong enough, because for one my project you may need different people. So some people are experts in geology or smeltering or infrastructure or economy. You need a lot of experts. If your team is not strong enough, maybe you have to give up the project, discard the project. Later you may lose money if you really take over the project. So one of the very important factor is still about human resources and your team building. Last night we discussed about team building. That's very, very important.
Yep.
If our team is strong enough, we just change different products, different services. Doesn't matter. Gold, copper, zinc, silver, molybdenum, a lot of mineral commodities or products. We can make money, very profitable. One of the core factors is human resources, human beings, the leader and the team, the high level managers. If they are strong enough, then you can sign up the contract. So even the asset, the property is very attractive, very interesting. You still must consider about your team. Your team, how about your cash? Do you have enough capital? How about your team? Team is one of the very important red line. Sometimes you need some people to do public relations to deliver speech to newspapers and magazines or even government medium. Even sometimes you need very important as a CEO. Anyway, when we are discussing about the mining project contract, always as a boss, you must consider all of these factors, not only one. So the red line, the first red line may be your team. If your team is not powerful enough, you must reconsider about your decision. This is before you sign up a contract. That means maybe you can make money maybe other people can make money, maybe some people will lose money. You must comprehensively analyze your project, your contract. Okay, now it's 1 o'clock. We had 1 p.m. and our conversation has lasted about 2 hours and 30 minutes, 2.5 hours. Okay, Joe, please summarize today's conversation, please.
Sure. Okay. So, today this is a big topic, and we could have discussed it for 20 hours.
Right.
But I hope we highlighted some of the important considerations with the idea of contracts and negotiation between the investors and operations and countries or states. And basically, what I want you to remember is for these kinds of negotiations and agreements, you've got those 4 areas that we talked about earlier, the legal, the social, the economic, and the environmental. And so you want to make sure that you're aware of basically the issues that you should be thinking about. Whether you work for the investor or you work for the government, you should be aware of these issues. And the links that I provided in the message section, those are documents to get you started and read through it, understand it in both English and Chinese.
Yeah.
And then try to go into these negotiations or into future contracts, keeping in mind what I said earlier about treating the other people, whether it's the investors or your government, treat them the way you would want to be treated if the roles were switched.
Yeah.
And I think you'll get a good outcome if you behave in that way. In most agreements, if all parties behave like that, then you can get a win-win outcome. Your country, your community, and the company all stand to it. There's no reason that someone has to lose in this game.
Right.
So
win-win.
That's it.
Or win.
Yeah, that's right. And so we could have gone on and on into every detail of contract, but the overarching theme here, it's everybody can benefit. Figure out how to make that happen. Don't get caught up with personalities. Just focus on the mission of making a solid negotiation and agreement between your organization and the other side.
Yes. Great. And anyway, exactly 2 hours and 30 minutes. I don't summarize more. And tomorrow, here I also today is the following Saturday. Here I have an advertisement about my Professor Xiao Rongge, who is expert in mineral deposit for many years, and this Saturday evening afternoon about 2:30 to 4 p.m. My professor will deliver a speech online, that is a live stream, for the second time, and hopefully our audience can attend that live stream program. And for us, for Mr. John Martins and I, for myself, I think for me, we tomorrow we still have a conversation. The day after tomorrow will be May 1st, and International Labor Day or Labor Festival. We are always laborers. We are always working, and the day after tomorrow will be International Labor Day. And tomorrow morning, hopefully 10 p.m. we will continue to have a program. Thanks a lot for your listening. And let me repeat in Chinese once again. 那一个是周六的下午2点半到4点，我的硕士导师肖荣科教授呢将会第二次做一个主题关于矿业矿产勘察的一个勘察及投资的一个报告，那么希望大家注意留意。另外一点是在明天呢，我们早晨10点钟还依然有一个节目，我跟 Joe Martins 呢还有一个节目，那么大家也希望大家能够及时给予我们反馈，我们谈的有些地方呢也未必都专业，有不足的地方也希望大家批评指正。感谢大家的聆听，感谢大家的捧场，感谢大家讨论。我们把我们的联系方式也放在这里。Okay. Please keep your leave a message about your contact information, Joe Martins. Joe, please.
Yes. Oh, a mess.
Yeah.
my WeChat, you mean?
Yeah.
I posted my WeChat to the message section.
Yes.
So they can reach my ID there. And
yes.
And again, I know I mentioned this a lot, and any of you who have listened to us before,
yeah.
Submit your ideas. Submit your ideas to us.
Yeah.
We want to hear what you would like to listen to us discuss. We discuss many types of topics, and it's an opportunity for you to hear those topics discussed in English. So submit your ideas and let us know what you would like us to discuss in the future.
Okay. Thanks a lot for our audience listening and participating in the discussion, and thanks a lot for appreciate Mr. John Martin's conversation. Thanks a lot. Okay. See you tomorrow morning 10 a.m. Okay.
Tomorrow.
See you. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Have a good afternoon.
Good. Have a sound sleep tonight. Okay.
I will.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.